In basic networking, take a look at some of the high-level topics that we'll be covering more in detail as we pass on through our course. We'll talk about some of the required things, some of the things that happen behind the scenes, just kind of get a good idea of what networks are all about. We'll talk about network requirements, and these are the very simple physical requirements that we have to have in order to establish a network. Once we put those networks together, they'll have different types of computers and types of clients in them, and depending on what those are, they'll fall into a certain network model category, and we'll discuss each one of those and what they're used for. Now, regardless of what's contained inside your network, it will fall into a physical topology, which is how the network physically looks and how the computers and the components of the network have been arranged. Now, after you've got them all connected together and arranged, the way they operate may not necessarily fall in line with the way that they look. So the way they actually operate is called a logical topology. So we'll discuss some of the logical topologies, and then we'll kind of mesh the physical and logical topologies together and see how they act. Now, a network category is a geographical representation of a network. Now, depending on how far your network spans, how many miles or how many buildings or lots they expand, they will fall under different network categories. So let's start out by looking at some of the basic requirements that you'll need in order to establish a network. Networks are simply made up of three basic things. You have to have your computer. Within that computer, you'll have a network card. And in order for those network cards to communicate, you'll have to have some type of networking cable. Now let's start out with the computer side of things. Basically, your networked computers will have some sort of operating system running on them that has to have network capabilities. Now this is pretty easy, as most of the operating systems out there today do support networks. Now the physical hardware inside the computer plays a role as well. Within your computer, the little small circuitry is called bus. Now bus is basically the highway that data travels on. Your network card has this same data highway. Now interestingly enough, inside of your computer, almost everything runs in parallel, which is side by side. So we might have several different lanes of that data as it passes over the inside of the computer. Well, unfortunately, networks generally run serially, which means they run in a straight line. So somehow we've got to be able to get that internal parallel data to a serial inline data onto the network. Well, that's what the network card's going to do for us. So the network cards are an extremely important part of a basic network. Now your cabling, also known as media, is also extremely important. Your network cards, your computers, and your cabling all have to match up together or they won't communicate properly. Network cabling can be as simple as going to the store and buying a 3-foot cable, or it can be as complicated as building your own cable and crimping your own ends. So we'll cover some of the basic media requirements also later on in our lessons. So we've got our computers, we've got our network cards, and we've got our cabling. So let's see what else we can do with this.